Okay, let's jump right in. Today, we're unpacking a truly fascinating philosophical concept laid out by the author Xu Feng. It's the kind of idea that honestly challenges the absolute foundation of how we perceive our reality, our daily struggles, and our entire mindset. I want you to imagine for a second that reality isn't a fixed, immovable object. Instead, it's more like a flexible, highly responsive cosmic game. A game where the rules are dictated entirely by the thoughts you actually choose to project. In the text we're exploring today, Xu Feng introduces us to what he calls the game of pretending to be true. It's a premise that basically suggests our physical world is just clay, and our mental state, well, that's the sculpture. If you've ever felt completely stuck in a negative loop, or maybe felt like the universe was just out to get you, the insights we're about to explore offer a profound, completely different way to approach your everyday life. Okay, let's dive into this, because there is one absolute core rule to this entire game, and I want you to really think about it. What if your subconscious mind literally couldn't tell the difference between a lie and the truth? We spend so much of our lives agonizing over what's real and what's fake, right? What's a cold, hard fact versus what's just wishful thinking. But Xu Feng's premise suggests that the deeper parts of our consciousness, the actual engines driving our reality, are completely blind to that distinction. They don't judge, they don't fact-check your thoughts, they simply absorb the input you feed them and start building a reality around it. If you feed your mind a terrifying lie, it's going to build a terrifying truth. But if you feed it a beautiful lie, well, that is exactly where the game gets incredibly interesting. To really grasp how this works, we have to define something called holographic thinking, which the author basically equates to how the subconscious mind functions. It's a mental state that recognizes information but completely fails to distinguish between true and false. The text explains that the non-material world, the realm of thought, energy, and the subconscious, only recognizes data. It operates just like a computer. Think about it. If you type a line of code into a machine, the computer doesn't sit back and judge whether that code is morally right, factually accurate, or even beneficial to you, right? It just runs the program, period. In holographic thinking, there are no opposites. There is no true and no false. There's only the exact information you are focusing on right now. So playing the game of pretending something is true isn't just some silly mental exercise. According to this philosophy, it is the fundamental mechanism of how our reality is actually generated. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that playing this game passively or just blindly comes with some incredible danger. The source text gives us a couple of really powerful cautionary anecdotes to show this. In the first one, a man goes to Buddha seeking an easy life and asks to have 100 families provide for him. And guess what? He gets exactly what he asked for. The universe, or his subconscious, didn't judge his request. It just fulfilled the parameters of the data. And the most direct, literal way for 100 families to provide for a single man? He became a beggar. He achieved his truth, sure, but the outcome was an absolute tragedy because he didn't carefully construct the reality he was projecting. It is a really stark warning about just how literal the subconscious can be. And the text follows that up with this equally striking second example. A woman prays to Buddha, asking that others serve her. Again, she's asking for a reality without carefully designing the beautiful part of the lie. The holographic mind processes the raw request, let others serve me. The result? She becomes completely bedridden with illness, forcing her relatives to serve her all day and all night. I mean, the wish was granted in literally the most agonizing way possible. And these stories aren't just ancient parables, they're functional demonstrations of the text's core thesis. Your mind will absolutely give you what you focus on. But if your focus is rooted in a passive, unexamined desire, the reality that forms around it can end up being incredibly destructive. Bringing this into a much more modern context, the text outlines exactly how we lose this game through everyday negative visualization. The author argues that if people constantly tell a healthy man he looks horrible and must be ill, and he internalizes that, he will soon become sick. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy driven entirely by the subconscious. But it's even worse when we fool ourselves. The text states that if you have perfectly healthy kidneys, but you constantly dwell on the terrifying thought that they're failing, eventually they actually will fail and you'll end up on dialysis. Or think about how often you've dreaded going to work and thought, oh, I just wish I could lie in bed for a few days. Well, the author warns that your mind hears that request loud and clear. Soon you might suffer nerve damage, severe stomach pain, or a broken leg. You get to stay in bed, but at a terrible, terrible cost. This right here is the ultimate danger of pessimistic pretending. And this brilliantly illustrates why we have to make a deliberate pivot to stop the negative cycle. If our minds are constantly pretending anyway, literally always projecting data that becomes our reality, we absolutely must take control of the controller. We have to shift away from the passive, pessimistic pretending that leads to illness and misery and move deliberately into active, sunny, and optimistic pretending. the author explicitly tells the reader, never ever play the negative games. Instead, we have to consciously choose to construct beautiful lies to overwrite the ugly truths of our present reality. Let's actually look at exactly how the author suggests we do this across 8 specific scenarios. So the author maps out specific strategies to completely flip the script. Instead of dwelling on an illness, you must pretend to be in perfect health, believing in your heart that recovery is imminent. If you deeply hate someone, like you literally want to spit in their face, counterintuitively, pretend you like them. Compliment them. Tell them they're cool and great. And the author notes that your hatred will actually vanish pretty quickly. When your food is bland and you have zero appetite, pretend it's a nutritious, delicious delicacy. Remind yourself how blessed you are compared to the hungry in the world, and suddenly that boring meal tastes incredible. And if someone is totally indifferent to you, pretend they care for and love you the most. According to this philosophy, over time they will become exactly that. You are intentionally overriding the ugly truth with a carefully chosen beautiful lie. Let's move to and see how this builds, because the text takes this even further, building an escalating narrative of how deeply this philosophy can be applied. If you feel yourself becoming overly worldly, pretend to be transcendent, natural, and elegant. If you're burdened by heavy troubles, actively show others a vigorous, high-spirited, confident side, and those troubles will actually begin to fade. Then, the philosophy takes a really bold leap, suggesting that even if you have stale food or expired medicine, you should pretend that a panacea, a total cure-all, will be born from it, bringing unexpected benefits and rejuvenation. Now, it's important to note, this is presented strictly as the author's philosophical viewpoint on the absolute power of belief over the material world. Finally, when faced with hesitation or annoying stoppages in life, don't worry. Instead, pretend and fully believe that the greatest creator has arranged the absolute best plan for you and simply let it unfold. What connects all 8 of these scenarios is a simple but incredibly powerful concept. Small investments yield endless benefits. Think about how much energy we waste worrying, complaining, and dreading the ugly truths in our lives. The author is pointing out that shifting your mindset, choosing to pretend a beautiful lie is true, requires very little actual physical investment. I mean, it costs absolutely nothing to look at a bland plate of food and pretend it's a feast. It costs nothing to smile at someone you dislike and pretend they're a great friend. Yet the emotional, perceptual, and, according to the text, the literal real-world rewards are endless. You're essentially hacking the subconscious operating system we defined earlier, getting maximum output for minimal input, a real game changer. So, the crucial point is how you can actually apply this today. The author distills this down into a very actionable 3-step process. Step 1, identify an ugly truth in your life right now. Maybe it's a super stressful job, a strained relationship, or just a minor physical ache. Step 2, pretend it is a beautiful lie. Actively, consciously create a counter-narrative. Pretend the job is your absolute dream calling. Pretend the relationship is full of deep, profound love. Pretend your body is vibrating with perfect health. And step 3, watch a beautiful truth be born. By maintaining this pretense, your subconscious, which, remember, cannot tell the difference between the lie and the truth, will start to physically and emotionally align your reality with the beautiful lie you've chosen. As we reach the climax of Xu Feng's text, we find this incredibly thought-provoking quote. Pretending to be true is to create a state of mind with your heart. These are the lowest levels of games that celestial beings play. This reframes literally everything we've just talked about. This isn't just some neat self-help trick to make your food taste better or your workday go faster. The author is suggesting that this act of conscious creation, of using your heart to dictate your reality, is a divine trait. It implies that as we learn to overwrite ugly truths with beautiful lies, we're actually practicing a higher form of consciousness. We are playing these starter levels of a cosmic game, learning how to master our reality the exact way celestial beings do. It places immense power, and of course immense responsibility, right back into your own mind. Which leaves us with the most important question of all. What beautiful lie will you pretend is true today? You now know the rules of the game. You know that your subconscious is listening, completely unjudging, just waiting for the data you provide. You can let the world feed you passive, pessimistic programming, or you can grab the controls. You can identify an ugly truth in your life the exact moment this explainer ends and completely replace it with a beautiful lie. The investment is small, but as we've explored, the benefits might just reshape your entire reality. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and enjoy playing the game.